Hey, this is Brian. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share something I'm really excited about. Every day, kids face choices about kindness, honesty, responsibility, and how they treat others. Those small choices help shape the people they become. So, that's why I wrote Charlie's Choices, a brand new children's book that helps families start meaningful conversations about making better choices in a fun and engaging way. So, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, or a caregiver, I hope it becomes a resource that helps children grow in character, one choice at a time. You can find Charlie's Choices on Amazon or learn more at bridgingsuccess.com/Charlie. And as always, thanks for your support. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to the Acceptance Project podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Gross. One of the most relaxing places in the world for me has always been Lake Cumberland in Kentucky. I spent many summers there as a kid, and I continued going back as an adult. There's something about sitting beside that lake that always allowed me to slow down, think, and even breathe. In fact, I wrote about 90% of my doctoral dissertation while sitting alone at Lake Cumberland. I'd bring my books and articles, notes, and probably enough snacks to survive an apocalypse. Then I'd sit there reading, studying, writing, and occasionally staring at the water while I was pretending I was still being productive. But since we're being honest, I was really just daydreaming. If you've ever been to Lake Cumberland, then you know how easy it is to get lost in the sound of the cicadas, the hum of boats, or the smell of a campfire. Some of my best thinking happened around there. And if you've never been there, what are you waiting for? Book a vacation. We can meet up. And when evening came, there was always a campfire. If you ever spent time around one, you know people are naturally drawn to it. Someone starts the fire, someone pulls up a chair, and before long, people begin gathering, telling stories, laughing, and then someone burns a marshmallow until it looks like a piece of charcoal. Some people will stay for a few minutes while others stay for a few hours. And of course, there's always the few that sit with you until everyone is tired and ready to call it a night. So, I invite you to throw another log on the fire and let's spend a few minutes talking together about a concept I was reading about earlier this week. Who knows, maybe we'll find some time to talk about that big fish you caught but somehow managed to escape, and the only proof you have is the story you'll be telling for years to come. This week, I was preparing a psychology lecture on the science of attachments and how our attachments help us form and maintain friendships. The leading researchers were John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, and their research has been amazing for better understanding how our ability to form attachments are carried with us throughout life. While preparing for this lecture, I was reminded of a Campfire Theory I had read, and of course that sent me down this rabbit hole searching for it again. Now, before my psychology students start searching through the textbook, it ain't going to be on the exam. And let me save you some time. The Campfire Theory is not a formal psychological theory. It's a social metaphor that has become popular because it gives us a simple way to think about friendships and relationships. The idea is that our lives are like campfires. People come and sit with us for different lengths of time. Some stay for a short visit, and some remain through a major part of our lives. Some, unfortunately, they leave earlier than we had hoped, and others return after being gone for years. When someone leaves an actual campfire, we don't automatically assume the fire was the problem. We understand that they may be tired or maybe somewhere else to go, or just need to get home. But when someone leaves our lives, we often take it personally. We ask ourselves, what did we do wrong? We wonder whether we were good enough. We replay old conversations and we search for clues. Sometimes we even turn into an investigator or work in a case nobody asked us to solve. So today I want to talk about what the Campfire Theory can teach us about relationships, acceptance, and of course, one of the main pillars of bridging success, and that's belonging. Some people enter our lives and remain for years. They know our history. They remember what we looked like before age and gravity and questionable fashion choices started working together against us. They know the stories we tell at parties because, well, they were probably there when those stories happened. They've seen us at our best, and they've seen us during moments we would rather forget. But other people are in our lives for only a season. They may be childhood friends, classmates, coworkers, neighbors, teachers, or people we met, going through a difficult time. At one point, we may have believed those relationships would last forever, and then something changed. Someone moved, got married, changed jobs, or maybe began raising children or caring for an aging parent. Priorities shift, they always do. Phone calls become less frequent. Messages stop, and eventually, two people who once knew everything about each other become people who only see occasional updates on Facebook, and well, that can hurt. Friendships don't always end with a conversation. Sometimes there's no argument. Nobody officially says goodbye. The relationship just becomes quieter until one day you realize it has been months or even years since you last spoke. When that happens, we sometimes begin to blame ourselves. We think, maybe I was too much, or maybe I was not interesting enough, or maybe I said something wrong. Sometimes we do contribute to the loss of a relationship. We all make mistakes. Maybe we fail to listen or neglect the relationship or say something that causes harm. If we hurt someone, we should acknowledge it, apologize, and learn from it. But not every relationship ends because somebody did something wrong. Sometimes life changes people. Different responsibilities, needs, and paths take them in different directions. Their decision to leave may have very little to do with the value of the relationship or with your value as a person. Now, the campfire theory reminds us that someone leaving does not mean our fire was not good enough. Think about the people who were once part of your life. Some helped you through a hard time, and some taught you something about yourself, while others made you laugh when you didn't think you could laugh. Some even believed in you before you had much confidence in yourself. The relationship may have ended, but what happened during that time, it still mattered. We tend to measure the success of a relationship by how long it lasts, but length is never really the only thing that gives a relationship value. Some people can be in our lives for years and never really know us, and someone else can enter our life during one difficult year and help change its direction. The ending does not cancel everything that came before it. That can be hard to accept because most of us want an explanation. I do. We want closure. We want the other person to tell us exactly why things changed, preferably in a clear document, with headings and dates and supporting evidence. But we don't always get that. Sometimes closure comes from deciding that we will not allow another person's departure to become the measure of our worth. We can look back and say, I wish that relationship had continued, but I'm still grateful for what it gave me. And sometimes people come back. A friend may return after 10 or 20 years. You may reconnect and discover that the relationship still has a place in your life, or maybe you realize that both of you have changed and the relationship now just looks different. Either outcome is okay. Our job is not to force everyone to stay. Our job is to learn from our relationships, appreciate the people who are here, and keep building a life that allows new connections to form. The campfire theory is closely connected to the bridging success pillar of belonging. Belonging is one of those words we use a lot. Schools, employers, and even community organizations talk about it. Nearly every organization claims that everyone is welcome. But saying people are welcome and helping them feel welcome are not the same thing. Imagine arriving at a campfire where everyone already knows one another. The chairs form a tight circle. People are sharing stories and inside jokes, but nobody tells you to leave, but nobody moves over either. There may even be an empty chair, but it's behind everyone else, next to a pile of wet firewood and a cooler somebody had been using as a footrest. Technically, there is a place for you, but it doesn't feel as though anyone expected you to be there. You stand around for a few minutes, smile politely, and wait for somebody to acknowledge you. When no one does, you leave. The people sitting around the fire may not even notice. That is how exclusion often happens. It's not always someone pointing at the door and saying, "You are not welcome here." Sometimes exclusion happens because nobody says, "Hey, come sit with us." A student can sit in a classroom every day and still feel invisible. An employee can attend every staff meeting and believe that their ideas just simply don't matter. A person can even live in a retirement community surrounded by people and still feel alone. Have you ever heard the phrase, feeling so alone in a room full of people? A new member can attend a community organization or even a church several times and stop coming because nobody learned their name. Physical presence is not the same as belonging. Belonging means knowing that your presence matters. It means believing that people will notice when you speak and notice when you're missing. It means having a place where you don't have to hide part of yourself to remain accepted. And at Bridging Success, we say that acceptance is active. Acceptance is not simply putting an empty chair beside the campfire and expecting people to find it on their own. Acceptance means noticing the person who is standing outside the group. It means moving over, pulling the chair closer, introducing yourself, and bringing that person into the conversation. It means doing more than saying everyone is welcome. It means asking, what are we doing to help people know they are welcome? That question matters because people often begin to shrink when they don't feel that they belong. Now, that's part of what I call the psychology of shrinking. People usually don't disappear from a community all at once. They pull back a little bit at a time. They stop raising their hand, sharing ideas, attending events, or maybe even volunteering. They begin eating lunch alone, turning down invitations because they have learned not to expect anyone to notice whether they come. And eventually, they leave. And because the process was quiet, everyone acts surprised. We say, I had no idea anything was wrong. But there were signs. We just simply weren't paying attention. And this is why I encourage people to become shrinking detectives. Look around your classroom, your workplace, your organization, your neighborhood, your church, or maybe even in your own family, and ask some honest questions. Who used to participate but rarely speaks now? Who sits alone? Who's never stopped showing up? Who has stopped showing up? Who is consistently interrupted or overlooked? And who is doing everything possible to appear fine while slowly separating from everyone else? And here's the harder question. Here's the one that many of us will probably struggle with. Ask yourself, have I made room for that person? It's easy to believe that somebody else will reach out. That's the bystander effect at work. When several people see something happening, each person assumes someone else will respond. But belonging often begins with one person deciding not to wait. One invitation can make a difference. One conversation can make someone feel seen and feel like they belong. One person saying, I noticed you weren't there yesterday. Are you okay? That can remind someone that their absence matters. You don't need a committee, a strategic plan, or a color-coded spreadsheet to begin helping someone feel included. Sometimes 5 words are enough. I saved you a seat. That statement tells someone, I expected you. I wanted you here. There is a place for you. And we can't force people to remain around our fire, but we can make sure they don't leave because nobody made room for them. Now, a campfire does not continue burning without some effort. Someone has to gather the wood and keep an eye on it. Someone has to notice when it's getting low. And there's usually one person who claims to be an expert because, they watched 3 episodes of Survivor. Relationships also require effort. Some people come into our lives because they enjoy what we provide. They like our energy, our support, our humor, or maybe it's just the way we make them feel. They enjoy sitting by the fire as long as somebody else is doing all the work. But when the fire gets low, where are they? They disappear. And then there are people who tend to the fire. They check on us when we become quiet. They listen when life is difficult and show up even when we don't have anything exciting to offer. They don't just show up for birthdays, celebrations, and Facebook photographs. They stay connected during illness, grief, disappointment, and ordinary days when nobody is receiving an award. Those relationships matter because they are based on more than convenience. But we also have to ask whether we are helping tend other people's fires. It's easy to focus on who is showing up for us, who called me, who invited me, who remembered my birthday, who supported me when I needed help. Those are fair questions. Relationships should not always be one-sided, but we should also ask, who have I checked on lately? Who have I encouraged? Who might need me to show up? Sometimes the other person who appears to be the strongest is the person who has become exhausted from supporting everyone else. They are the person who organizes the events, remembers every birthday, checks on every friend, and always says they are fine. Then one day, they stop. Instead of criticizing them for becoming distant, We might need to ask whether anyone was helping them carry the wood. Now, helping tend someone else's fire does not mean sacrificing your health, ignoring your own boundaries, or even taking responsibility for every person you know. We have all known someone who does not want you to help tend the fire. They want to hand you the matches, the wood, the chairs, the grocery list, and full responsibility for the campground. That is not a healthy relationship, by no stretch of the imagination. Boundaries still matter. We can't keep setting ourselves on fire to keep other people warm. We can care about someone and still recognize that the relationship is harming us. But most of the time, tending someone's fire involves small acts of care. Things like sending a message or extend an invitation. Listen without immediately trying to solve the problem. Maybe ask someone, "Hey, how are you doing?" and then give them enough time to answer honestly. Tell a person that their work matters. Just acknowledgement sometimes goes so much farther than we even realize. Thank someone who usually goes unnoticed. "Hey, I saw what you did the other day. I appreciate that. Thanks. I appreciate that. Made a difference for me." Just things like that make such a huge difference. Or maybe just simply include the person who is new. Do you remember what it was like walking into a new job or into a new classroom where everyone knew everyone and you knew no one? It just felt nice when that one person smiled and said, "Hey, there's an empty chair here." They acknowledged you. We all need that from time to time. Strong communities are not built because one person produces all the warmth. They are built when people take responsibility for how others are treated. A school becomes stronger when students and staff notice who is being excluded. A workplace becomes stronger when leaders listen to employees before those employees begin withdrawing. Or a community organization becomes stronger when new members are invited into the conversation. And definitely a retirement community becomes stronger when every resident is treated as a person, as someone with a voice, a history, and something to contribute. And our personal relationships become stronger when we stop assuming that the people we love already know how much they mean to us. Tell them. Don't wait until somebody leaves before talking about how much their presence mattered. At Bridging Success, we believe acceptance and belonging are continuing needs. We don't outgrow the need to feel accepted, and it doesn't disappear when we finish school, enter the workforce, become a parent, retire, or especially when we get older. Every person wants to know that they matter. Every person needs spaces where they can participate without being dismissed, speak without being made to feel small, and show up without hiding who they are. Now, if this message relates to something happening in your school or community, organization, place of employment, retirement community, or another group, I invite you to reach out to Bridging Success. Let's talk about how we can work together to build stronger communities. Through keynotes, workshops, conversations, and programs, we can help people recognize the early signs of shrinking, understand the importance of belonging, and create communities where acceptance is something we practice. Because an organization doesn't become accepting simply because the word inclusion appears on its website. Acceptance shows up in how people are treated. It shows up in who gets invited, when their ideas are heard, or when we notice when somebody begins pulling away. Together, we can spread the message that acceptance and belonging are needs everyone shares. And together, we can create communities where people know there is a place for them. You can learn more or even contact us through Bridging Success. I would love to hear what you have to say about your organization, the people you serve, and how we might work together. So as you move through the coming week, take a look at the people around your fire. Who's been there for you? Maybe helped you during a difficult season, or became quieter lately, or might be waiting for an invitation. And whose fire could use a little help? Reach out to someone, send a message, make the phone call, extend that invitation, and let someone know that you noticed them. If this episode made you think of someone, share it with them. You might also share it with the school, workplace, community organization, retirement community, or maybe a group that needs to have a stronger conversation about belonging. The more we talk about acceptance, the more likely we are to recognize the moments when someone needs it. So as we come to the end of our time together this week, I want to say one last thing. Campfire Theory reminds us that people will come and go in our lives at different times. Some relationships will last for years and others will be part of just one chapter. Their length does not determine whether they mattered. We can't control how long every person stays. but we can decide what people experience while they are here with us. We can notice them, listen to them, even make room for them, and we can make sure they know that their presence matters. So just remember, you may not be able to make everyone stay, but you can make sure there's always room for one more chair. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of those around you. The Acceptance Project podcast is a production of Bridging Success, LLC. To learn more about the podcast and our work, please visit bridgingsuccess.com. This podcast and its contents are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. I'm Dr. Bryan Gross, but I'm not a licensed therapist. The topics and opinions shared by me and any guests are our own and should not replace professional or medical advice. If you're seeking mental health support, medical guidance, or help with personal matters, please reach out to a licensed professional who can provide the individual support you need.